So then it's a mystic thing. He wants to take away clothes, but always her body is covered by clothes. He tried to unclothe her. There is a heap of clothes which he pulled, but still she has her clothes. So after some time this fellow fell down because he has no strength. And then Bhishma and others said, you see how she is protected? They are protected by the Lord, at least now. Then he told this blind fellow, at least now you be wise to give them back what they lost, because your son and your brother-in-law, they played a wicked game, and now if you continue like this, all your sons will be destroyed. So be wise to give them back. So then, with compulsion, this blind fellow, he told her, because I could not see what is happening, I heard that what is happening to you, so I am sorry, so I am giving back all what is lost, your kingdom, your husbands and all these things. So he has given it back. So then they can go back, but she said, oh no, once again you make a play. Second time. And now this son and this fellow said, now we'll make a new trick. Whoever loses the game should go into exile for 12 years into the forest. Leave the kingdom and go 12 years into the forest. And after 12 years, 1 year, they have to spend without being identified. Suppose during this 1 year, if you are identified, then you have to, another 12 years you should be, you should spend in exile in forest, and another 1 year like this. So that was the rule this time. So again they played a trick, so they lost. And so they said, you have to now go into the 12 years and plus 1 year, 13 years. And after 13 years, our agreement will be over. Then, if you come back, then you can have your kingdom back. So this was the agreement. So without speaking one word, Yudhishthira with his brothers and his wife, they went into the exile, in the forest. And during that time also, these fellows always tried to tease them in the forests also. Somehow to destroy them, tease them. They continued, but they could not do it. So successfully they completed 12 years. And this 1 year also, they spent in a place which they could not be identified. And they tried to drag them out to identify them, but they could not do it. And they completed successfully 13 years. And now the time came that they have to give them back their kingdom. That is the thing. Now, this eldest son of this fellow, this blind king, now he is asking his father, now it is time for us. They are going to come back to claim their kingdom. So now find out something to avoid this, that we should not give their kingdom back. That is the trick now.
Now we should make a war.
If necessary, then we can make a war and destroy them.
There is an eldest son.
Yeah.
They are not all the same age.
They are almost the same age, but the one who came first.
Bhima and the second son and the eldest son of this blind king are same age.
Yes.
But Yudhishthira is elder than all.
Yudhishthira is the eldest of all. So then this blind king was thinking how we have to make this. And then he wanted to know, actually, because they completed all these conditions and now they are in some kingdom. The kingdom just from where they can enter here. They are waiting there for the word of this blind king. So this blind king, he called one of his councils, one of his ministers, and said, you go as my messenger and find out what they are doing, what are their intentions.
Vidura, he sent Vidura.
No, not Vidura, Sanjaya.
Sanjay.
So, there is one minister called Sanjaya. This Sanjaya was a very good person. He is a very righteous person and he loves Pandavas very much. But he was a minister in this court, so therefore he is continuing. And so this blind king appointed him to go.
He warned also.
And he said, Sanjaya said, what is there to for a messengership? Because they have come back according to their agreement. You give their kingdom back. Simply what you have to do is to give their kingdom back. Why do you think of sending a messenger and negotiations? What is there to negotiate? But this blind king does not agree. He says, yes, but before that you go.
But we have to prevent war.
That is what he says. If those people are preparing for war, we have to know this. Then Sanjaya says, okay, because you are the king, you are ordering me, I will go there. But actually this is illegal. That is what he says.
And also he says, if it is a war, then your 100 sons will die. This is true. He says
So,
to his king.
If you behave like this, all your sons will die. So you remember this. Then the blind king is not happy for this advice. He says, you have to go. You convince them not to make a war because he knows if they will not fulfill their agreement, there will be a war. So he says to this fellow to convince them not to be prepared for a war. And so this Sanjay goes there to Pandavas, and then Yudhishthira, they received him very well because he was their friend. The Pandavas are not against anybody. So the Sanjaya, when he goes there to Pandavas, Krishna was also there, Pandavas at that time. So they received this Sanjaya very well because Sanjaya was also the classmate of Arjuna from childhood. So they are close friends. So he received they received him, and they made him all comfortable. And then the next morning in the court, then they asked him to give his message, what he brought from the blind king. And he says, your uncle, he wants to see you in a good condition, and your uncle doesn't want that you and your brothers should fight with each other. Like this he says. Then Yudhishthira says, we never said that we are going to fight. We don't want to any war. We are not come for war. We just came according to the agreement. We came back after completing the agreement. That's the only thing. Here we are not thinking of any war. But why you speak of war? Because he has to convey the message of the blind king. He doesn't speak, but he has to convey. So he said, what your uncle said is, you and the sons of your uncle, you are brothers, so between you there should be no war. And Yudhishthira says, we never wanted a war. And then Krishna says, I am coming to your court as a messenger. I will speak to you. And then you go and tell your king. And so he returns, the Sanjaya returns. And the blind king is very anxious to know what will be the news from there. And then after he returns back, he asks, what is the news? He says, nothing, you are useless fellow. They are very good people, but you are wicked.
My image was damaged by going there.
So therefore he says, I will not speak to you now. And he goes. And this blind fellow king cannot sleep. He is very anxious at night. So then he calls Vidura. Vidura is their brother, and also their minister. So he calls him and says, at midnight he calls him. He says, why you have called me at midnight? And he says, I could not sleep. Then Vidura says, so, no, he says, there are only 4 reasons for any person that he cannot sleep, like this in your condition. He says 4 reasons. What are the 4 reasons? The first reason is, suppose, if there is a powerful enemy at the border, ready for attack, then the ruler, the king who is ruling this, he cannot sleep. So this is one condition. And the second condition is, a fellow who is doing business or commerce, suppose he has a news that what all he has invested is gone, is
Without
lost,
insurance.
then he cannot sleep. And the third one who cannot sleep is a thief who wants to steal from a house at night, like what happened with your house. At night, a thief who wanted to make a hole to the house and enter the house, he will never sleep, he should not sleep. If he sleeps, he cannot do it. So he cannot sleep. And the fourth category is a fellow who has all sexual thoughts about, illegal thoughts about another woman illegally. That fellow cannot sleep. So these are the 4 fellows who cannot sleep. Now you find out in which category you are.
It's very hard.
Very hard. That is what the Blind King says. I have no peace of mind and you are still hitting me. He said, I am not hitting, you are hitting yourself by your own deeds.
Your deeds will make all your 100 sons die. This is true.
Because you are foolish. You even though you know that your sons are going to die, but still you are acting like this. So you are responsible.
Please tell me something which
So this fellow says, no, please, you don't hit me with your words. Please tell some soothing words to me, so that I will be peaceful. But he says, you cannot be peaceful because your wrong action.
already you have acted.
You have already done something wrong and still you are continuing. So how can you be pacified?
Then he said, you have to go to the Pandavas and tell them and give back them their land, then you are safe. Then he is not happy. Because his son is already stronger and he is not in a position to listen to his father also.
He doesn't care. Suppose if he tells his son, please at least now let us give their part there, then his son, he will throw him into jail. This also he knows because all these years he has just supported his son. Now his son, he cannot control his son, this he knows. So therefore, he said this. Then he said, you please initiate me about something, some mantra, something where I can avoid death. To
Where my sons could.
And then he says, to initiate you, I am not the person, suitable person. My guru is there. So if you want, I can call him. So he can initiate you. He can answer all your questions. Then he says, please call your guru immediately. Okay, he says. So his guru is Sanatsujatiyam. So this Vidura is the disciple of Sanatsujatiyam. So then he prays his guru, please manifest here. So immediately Sanatsujatiyam manifests there. And then the blind king, he can feel some energy, but still he is blind. He feels the energy. And then Vidura says, now here is my guru. You honor him and then you ask him whatever you want to ask him. And that is the situation. What is given, what did this blind fellow ask him? What did Sanatsujatiyam answer to him? That dialogue, that is there in this book. This is the part of Mahabharata, and this is considered to be very important because the teachings of what were given by Sanatsujata are eternal, and for any practitioner, that is why it has so much importance. So Master has given this discourse, and luckily it was recorded, and we brought it into book form. So now we are going to get into this book. So the first thing, the blind king. So the blind king asked the Sanatsujata to take his seat and said, "Sir, I am very much agitated that everybody says my sons will die. And I heard from your disciples, you always say that there is no death. So I want to hear from you, confirmation from you, that there is no death. So if you confirm that there is no death, so I am very happy, because then I am sure my sons will not die." And that is what he wants. Even now, he doesn't want that his sons should be rectified and behave properly and give back what they have taken away. That is not what he wants. He wants somebody to protect his sons from death. That is the only thing. So that his sons can continue in the same manner. That is what he wants. That is too horrible, too wicked. So that is the first thing he asks. What is your answer? Because some people say they are working to overcome death. In some books it is written that we have to transcend death. We have to practice to overcome death. But you said there is no death. So, which of these is true? What you said is true, that there is no death. But what other masters, other rishis said, that we have to overcome death, we have to transcend death. So, which of these is true? I want to know from your words. That is what he actually first he questions this, because his mind is very complicated.
Political.
He's a very master says he was a seasoned politician. This blind fellow is very seasoned politician. Seasoned, polished. Experienced, polished politician.
He can talk in any way.
He is very intelligent. He is highly intelligent. Master always says that in whole of Mahabharata, there are two persons who are very intelligent. Who are equally intelligent, there are only two persons. One is this blind king, and another is Yudhishthira, the eldest of Pandavas. But the difference is, Yudhishthira is totally surrendered to the Lord consciousness, to the Lord. So he never uses his intelligence for this, only for the welfare, and also he only follows the cosmic law. And this fellow uses his intelligence for himself and his sons. That is the difference.
And he has no connection with the heart.
No.
So knowledge without love is dangerous.
Which is once again yatna and karma.
Yes.
That is what he is asking, to cancel the karma of his sons. What he has
So
to-
he wants that his sons should be protected from death. That is the only thing he wants. So that is the first question he has put to this blind king. So the blind king says, Sanatsujata eridam srunami. So he also addresses Sanatsujata not as a master or a great like this. He wants only somebody to solve his problem, but not to honor him. So he says, Mr. Sanatsujata. That is what he says.
because he is
Sanatsujata.
king.
Because he is the king. He still feels he is the king. So Sanatsujata came to him So he says, Mr. Sanatsujata, I heard Edam Sunomi Namruchurati Asti Tavopadesam. You have previously explained to your disciples that there is no death at all. Devasura Acharan Brahmacharyam Amrutyave Tat Karanu Satyam. So, the Devas and the demons both equally they tried to get immortality. So, now you please make it clear to me, is it true or not? Is it true that there is death, or is it true that there is no death? Which of these things is true? Then Sanatsujata answers in a wonderful manner. Because he addressed this king fellow, addressed Mr. Sanatsujata. So Sanatsujata said, "Oh king." He also, Sanatsujata did not say Dhritarashtra. He said, "Oh king." Because he spoke like a king before the master also. So the master said to him, "Oh king, my dear king, both are true," he said first.
Both?
Both are true, because he asked, you said there is no death, and some of the rishis and some masters said there is death. Which is the truth?
Both are true.
Both are true, he said. It is a shock to him. First he shocked him. Both are true.
Yeah, this is just.
Ve satye kshatriya edacha vidhi. O king, both are true. First you have to know this, that both are true.
Is it Sanskrit, huh?
In Sanskrit.
Yeah, this is just like we say sun is revolving around that, and in fact earth is revolving around something.
So, so he says that Ve satye kshatriya adya pravrutte moho amrutyuhu sammato yah kavina. So he says that both are true. When you are not allured, that is, when you are not allured, you have no death. When you commit something wrong, that committing something wrong itself is death. So, pramadam vai mrityu aham bravimi. Sada apramadam amritatvam bravimi. So he said, what is amritatva? Amritatva means immortality. Mrityu means mortality. So he said, both are true. When you do not commit anything wrong, then you are immortal. When you commit something wrong, you are mortal. This is the only thing. So, in that way, both are true. There is no death when you do not commit anything wrong. There is death if you commit something wrong. So, in this, what is the problem? Both are true. That is how he started. First shocked the fellow, blind fellow. So that is what he said. Because this blind fellow asks that somebody said we have to conquer death. If death is not there, where is the question of conquering? What is your opinion like this? He asked. So he said, yes, I am confirming that death means committing a wrong thing. When you commit, when the moment when you commit something wrong, that means that is an indication that you are going to die. That is death. So this is first a shock to this fellow. Sada apramadam amritatvam bravimi. I always confirm that if you want to have immortality, you must be careful in the beginning itself not to commit such mistakes. But you are committing mistakes again and again. And how can you say that there should be no death? So, even in our daily life, so Master explains these things. So Master explains this because this is like a short sentence he said. But in short sentence, we normal people, we cannot comprehend this unless it is explained by a person like Master. So Master explains this, that so whenever you have done something against the law, that means you made yourself ready for death. That is the first thing. You cannot escape that. So continuously if one practices to behave in a lawful manner without committing any mistake, for this Master has given an example. Master says that when you are bicycling, when you are on your bicycle operating, you are riding on the bicycle. So when, as long as you keep pedaling, then you are not fallen.
When you stop,
When you stop, you will fall.
Mhm.
You cannot balance it.
Doing his life, done is,
Yes, it's once again the same thing. Another example he has given is, some fellow was driving the car and he felt a little bit sleepy. So he was driving the car on a highway and he felt sleepy. Just the moment where he felt sleepy, he made an accident. Now this fellow says, for 1 hour I was driving without sleep, but just a moment has happened, but it has happened. Yes, that is true.
Yes, this is like this.
That is like this.
Yeah.
As long as you do not sleep while driving, no problem.
When you feel sleepy, stop and
Yeah. But if you sleep even for one
fraction of a second.
fraction of a second, there will be accident.
Yeah,
But you cannot argue that I have been driving without sleeping for all the time, only for a second. Yes, that second is enough. That is an example Master gives for this.
Mistake.
Even if you have spent your life without committing, yes, then you are okay. But you cannot say that for 40 years I have spent in a yogic life, but this is the only mistake I have committed. Yes. Even once you have committed means you have the result. That also you have to accept. You cannot say that all that what I did should cancel this mistake. That cannot be done. Because later he will ask, this blind fellow, he is a very clever fellow, as I told you. Later he will ask that, because when he explains this, still he is not convinced. He wants to manipulate even Sanatsujatiyam also to confirm his action.
This is the point. Yeah.
Also we can see this.
So, in this dialogue, after some time he asks, Mr. Sanatsujata, suppose now I give some cows, I give some food, I give some things for poor people, this will give good result or not? Sanatsujata says, yes, of course, there is no doubt about it. Without expectation, if you give some cows, if you give some riches, if you give some food to the people, needed people, it always has a good result. Then he says, then I will give away thousands of cows to the people, needy people, because I have many thousands, because he is a king. And I give much money, distribute money, so I gain much of this. With this, can I cancel the result of bad deeds of my sons? So that they are not destroyed.
Business.
They have business. Then Sanatsujata smiles and says, my dear fellow, that is different account and this is different account.
Yeah.
You cannot cancel one with the other, he says. You can distribute food, you can do anything for the, so now you have good result. But what you did in the past, you cannot escape. Your sons, because you have allowed your sons, in that way you are also responsible. when you were